Today we are going to learn the music theory that you need before you can play the violin, and it's the basic music theory. The method we are going to be learning today is called staff notation. So on this table of contents here we have the staff. That's the most important thing when it comes to staff notation. Then we have the clef, and that will be the treble clef. Then the notes and rests, the musical letters, the ledger lines, the accidentals, and the time signature. The first on the list is the staff, or you can also call it the stave. The staff is a musical symbol that consists of 5 equal and horizontal lines with 4 equal spaces in between them. Those lines are parallel, they don't meet. So it looks like this. So this is the staff. And when we want to number them, we number from the bottom to the top. Number the lines 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lines. For the spaces we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 5 lines and 4 spaces. So the next important thing on the staff is the clef. And because we are learning this music theory to play the violin, which is a soprano instrument, and this works for all soprano instruments, I'm going to use the treble or soprano clef. So we'll just call it the treble clef. And like I said, the treble clef because the violin is a treble, or you can say a soprano instrument. So the treble clef starts like this, goes round the second line, then finds a way to curl up and then comes down. So notice that the main circle is somewhere around the second line, and this treble clef is also called the G clef. It's G clef because it starts from this second line and it gives that second line the name G. So note that when the treble clef is placed on a staff, the whole arrangement becomes a treble staff. So you don't just isolate the clef and call it treble clef. It is the treble clef that was placed on the staff. So this whole arrangement is called the treble staff. So for the treble staff, the second line is called a G. And take note, in music we use 7 alphabets to name our lines and spaces. A, then B, then C, then D, E, F, and G. After G, you go back to A, and so on, not H. The second line now is called G. This G. Then other lines will follow suit. Before we get the names of other lines, we're going to talk about the notes and rests. Then we'll come to the fourth on the list, which is the musical letters. Notes and rests. Now there are a number of notes, musical notes, used on the staff. That's what we call staff notation. But we're going to make use of just about 4 of them. Number 1 is the semi-breve. Number 2 is the minim. Number 3 is the crotchet. Then number 4 is the quiver. There are more than this. Like there's another one called the breve. There are some others called the semi-quiver. We have the demi-semi-quiver, hemi-demi-semi-quiver, and so on. But we're going to make do with these 4 under the basic music theory needed to play the violin. So the semi-breve, this is the symbol, just a head like this. A typical note has a head. The minim has a head and a stem, either pointing up or a head and a stem pointing downward. Then the crotchet has a head and a stem pointing upward or pointing downward. But the difference between the minim and the crotchet is that the crochet's head is shaded, whether it is pointing up or pointing down, it is shaded. Then the quiver has a head shaded with a stem pointing up or pointing down, and then a flag. Now the next thing is the rest. We have rest, musical rest, which is a period of silence in music. Okay, there is an equivalent rest for each note here. Now for the semi-brief, the rest looks like this. It means that you should keep silent for a period of time. This box is placed on the fourth line of the staff. You see where you have the staff 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 lines like this. If you see, you will see the semi-brief rest under the fourth line, like this. Hope you can see that. So line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4 has the semi-brief rest. The minim rest looks like the semi-brief rest, but the difference is that the minim rest is on the third line of the staff, on this third line of the staff, like that. So it's also shaded. So this is line 3 on the staff. Line 4 on the staff has the semi-brief rest pointing down, facing downward. Line 3 on the staff has the minim rest facing upward. Then the crochet rest looks like this, or it looks like this. So this or this. And then for the quiver rest, it looks like this, just like the reverse of this. Not Y, not letter Y. As the rest, a knot like a knot, then curve, then straight down there. Now for the duration, each of these notes and rests has a particular duration in music, and that duration is dependent on what we call the time signature. We're going to learn the time signature later in this class. For now, we're going to make use of the time signature called common time, that is 4/4 time signature. You understand better when we get to the topic time signature. In common time, the crochet has the value of 1, and what's that 1? Beats, 1 beat. The duration is measured in beats. Some people call it pulse or counts. So the crochet has the value of 1 beat. And then when you go up like this to the minim, you multiply by 2. As you're going to the semi-brief, you multiply by another 2. If you're coming down the list like this, you divide by 2. So going up, you have the crochet. The crochet now has 2 beats. The semi-brief has 4 beats. The quiver has half beats. So that's that about the notes and rests. So this symbol, if you see it on your staff, it is called the semi-brief, and this is the rest. You will understand as we go on and as we begin to apply them in music. Make sure you assimilate this very well, because this is what you'll be seeing mostly when we go into playing the violin. Now the next thing we're going to look at is item 4, which is the musical letters. Now the musical letters, like I said before, they are the first 7 letters of the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. That's all. It doesn't go to H, it doesn't go to I, and so on. No, it doesn't. After G in the scale, you go back to A. After A, B, like that, on and on, repetitive like that. These musical letters are what we use those notes to represent. The notes I talked about, we use the notes to represent these musical letters. And when you play the violin, you will notice that you find these letters on your violin. So you now have to play the corresponding letter on the staff. When you see the staff, you know this is letter A. You look for it on your violin and you'll be able to play. When you play, you get the sound. You'll be able to reproduce what you see on the musical sheet. As we go on, you will understand more practically what I mean. So the staff, and then we have the treble clef. Now I said this spiral goes round the second line, which makes that second line line G. Now we want to arrange alphabetically. After letter G, I said we have A, no H. Then we have B, C, D, E, F. You see that? So before letter G is F, before letter F is E. Now, you notice that I did not skip any line or space. From G, the next thing is a space because G is on a line. So the next thing is a space. I put A there. The next line, B, space, line, space. And this is how the musical letters are placed on the staff. And it originated from this second line we call line G on the treble staff. Once this clef changes, once it's no more a treble clef that is here, once it is maybe a bass clef, it changes. For example, on the bass staff, this second line is line B, not G. So take note of that. This is a treble staff. The treble clef in the staff makes that second line of the staff to be G, and then other letters originate from there. So with time, you will be able to know each line or space, the letter name of each line or space, without having to arrange them like this. We can accommodate more letters, in other words, more notes, by what we call ledger lines. So the next thing we're going to look at is the ledger lines. So we use the ledger lines to accommodate more notes. If I put another letter here, G, it looks like I'm just putting something in the air. If I put another letter here, D, if I put C here, it looks like I'm just putting something on the air. But to make it look, more organized and more musical, I put what we call a ledger line. It's just a short dash, and it follows the same spacing, but I just like short dashes. They're not as long as the lines of the staff because it's an additive. If I make it as long as the line of the staff, then the staff no more consists of only 5 lines and 4 spaces. So this is just a short dash. You can have as many of it as you want. So I'll just have 2 up and 2 down. Now the letter before E, that's the first line of the treble staff, is D, that's this note here. And then the letter before D is this C, that's the first ledger line below the treble staff. And below that line, or that treble ledger line, you see B. Then on the second ledger line, when I say second, I mean I'm counting from the staff. So from the staff, this is the first ledger line, then this is the second ledger line, having that note head, that's the semi-break note head. Then you have the lowest notes here, that's the third space from the staff under the second ledger line, and that note happens to be the lowest note of the violin. So going above the staff, we have the first ledger line here, which is A. The space above it is B. See that written there, B. Then the second ledger line is another C, and then the space above it is D. You can go on and on that until you exhaust the range of the violin. The violin has 4 strings: string G, string D, string A, and string E. So if I'm going from the thickest string, that's from string G to string E, you will be going from the lower part of the staff to the upper part of the staff, because the G string on the violin is thicker physically and the sound is thicker, is more of bass than the E string, which is lighter. So from that G to D to A to E, you are going lighter. Likewise, from the lower part of the staff to the upper part of the staff, you are going higher, lighter. So if somebody that sings bass can sing these notes, as he goes up like this, it becomes too high for him. You understand? So from this point towards this point, you are going into a lighter voice range, maybe soprano or so. But this is the lowest that the violin can go. That is why it is the open G string. Now, this D is here. How many notes in between the D and the G? A, B, C. That's 3 notes. 3 notes are in between them. This is string G. This is string D. Then another set of 3 notes in between. You have string A. Another set of 3 notes in between. You have string E. You see that? So the 4 strings of the violin are G, D, A, and E. Now I'm bringing this to the violin. Some students usually confuse the staff with the violin strings. If I want to draw a section of the violin like this, just the fingerboard area of the violin. This is the fingerboard, and these are the strings. How many strings? 1, 2, 3, and 4 strings. You have this as E, then you have this as A, then D, and then G. That's these positions. These are the positions that has those names. So this is string E, string A, string D, and string G. Some students confuse this for the staff. This is not the staff. It's just a section of the violin. If you have the violin, this is the fingerboard area of the violin where the strings are. But this is the staff. This now can be used for any musical instrument, the trumpet, the flute, and the rest of them. But this one is just a section of the violin I magnified with these points. Once you see a note under 2 ledger lines below the treble staff, you know that you have to play your open string G. Once you see a note immediately under the staff, that's below E like this, at this point, you see a note on this point. For example, you see a meaning here. A note head is the note head that depicts where the note is. This note now is under the first line of the treble staff. The letter name of that note is D, and it corresponds with the open string D of the violin. So you just play D string open, and you will get what this note is. You get the sound for the note. The same thing for A. If you play open A string, you will get this note that is at the second space of the treble staff. If you play open E, open string E, you will get the note that is at the 4th space of the treble staff. Take note that all the 4 open strings of the violin are spaces on the treble staff. G is a space, D is a space, A is on the space, E is on a space. So you understand it more and more as we go on. The next thing on the list is accidental. Okay, so accidental, we have the sharp, the flat, the natural, accidental. There are about 3 majorly, although there are more than 3. Like we have double sharp, we have double flat, and so on. But we are going to make use of these 3 majorly. So these are the symbols. This is a symbol of the sharp, the symbol for the flat, and the symbol for the natural accidental. Now, what is the work of the sharp? It increases the pitch of a note by a semitone. So when you have a note sounding like this, la, you add the sharp to it, it sounds la, you keep adding sharps, la, 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 la. Like that, it increases the pitch by semitone, half step. The flat does the opposite of the sharp, increases the pitch of a note by a semitone. Then the natural sign restores the pitch of the note to its original state. If it was la and you added a sharp to make it la, when you now add a natural sign to that sharpened note, it comes back from la, it comes back to la. You understand? So that's that about accidentals. And these accidentals, especially the sharp and the flat, also appear in what we call a key signature. You will see that as we go on with the lesson. One sharp depicts key G, and so on and so forth. Now we're going to apply some of these accidentals to our musical letter names. If you have C and then you add a sharp to it, it becomes C sharp. Let's see how that looks like on the staff. Treble staff. If this is G, now the sharp will not be added to the right hand side like I did outside the sharp. Outside the staff, the sharp will be added here on the line. So this is when I want to write it out somewhere else, I'll call it G sharp. Understood? Now, if it's a note, the same thing. So the next on the list is the time signature. Now, you've heard about the common time when we talked about the notes and rest. The time signature appears as the third thing on the staff. So after the clef, which in this case is the treble clef, you have the key signature in this area. Then the next thing is the time signature. Now, this is the typical one, very common one. That's why they call it the common time. So 4/4 time signature. There are other types of time signature like 3/4 is there. You can have 6/8. You can have 2/2, and more and more and more and more. But when it comes to time signature, let me show you how it makes sense and what we use it for. When we talked about notes and rest, I told you that when we have common time, it's written like this or letter C. So when you see letter C in place of this number, it is also common time. That's what it is. So 4/4 or C. Now, this upper figure tells you the bar or measure. Now, what is a bar? A bar is the area between two bar lines. So this is a bar, this is another bar or measure. Also, a bar line is what bounds a bar to the right and to the left. Now, the upper figure tells us the number of beats per bar or measure, while the lower figure tells us the type of notes that takes 1 beat. So in this case, it is the crochet. You have the mini, crochet, and quiver. These are the 3 major notes that are used as the lower figure. So if the lower figure is 2, the meaning takes 1 beat. If the lower figure is 4, crochet takes 1 beat. If the lower figure is 8, quiver takes 1 beat. In this case, the lower figure is 4. How we interpret this is that we have 4 crochet beats in each bar. When you have more than 4 beats in bar in that music, is wrong. It can be less for the first bar, and for the last bar can be less than 4, but the first and the last bar complements each other. So if the first bar is 3 beats instead of 4, the last bar will now be 1 beat to complete that first bar. That is that for time signature. If time signature is 6/8, it means that we have 6 quiver beats in a bar. If it is 4/2, it means we have 4 meaning beats in a bar. Thank you for watching.